Okay, so in the last session, we have been seeing the advantages of TestNG. So we have been seeing the features of TestNG, and we created some TestNG XML, and we were running the test cases. So we created TestNG TestNG classes, and to run them, we have created the TestNG XML, and from XML, using XML, we were able to run the test, right? Now, so I'll show you the other advantage of running from the TestNG XML. For example, if let's say for example, I created a TestNG XML for this all annotations, right? So now I wanted to run this. What we do, like say for example, TestNG all. Okay, this has to be all annotations, right? So let me run this. All annotations, if you remember, we created this class to understand the different annotations we have. So if you see here, this is what it is, right? Before test, after test, and all, right? So let's run this now. Yeah. So before switch, after switch, and the combination of it, right? So before test will be run, and before class, before method, test method will be run, and the after method. And then for test method too, before method and after method will be run. And after that, class is at, so it is only one class. We have only one class in the TestNG XML, if you see. So only after class has run only one time. It has only one method, before class and after class. And after test method, we have only one test here. So only one test has been run. Before test and after test method got executed. And in the same way, we have only one suite. So only one suite. So before suite and after suite got executed. All right. So now I wanted to check the reports for this. So TestNG, so the other benefit of running the test from TestNG XML is we get a reports. We get reports. So if you see on the left, a new file folder gets created, test-output, right? So just refresh your project. Right click on your project, refresh so that, and then open this test output folder, and there will be many files. So we'll be looking at only two files mainly: email reportable HTML. So right click on that and open with system editor. So if you see here, it actually gives you the report. So it says this is a test. It says two passed, and it took 100 milliseconds for these two tests. And these are the two methods, actual test methods, which got executed. So this is a timestamp, start timestamp, and how much time it took to execute these methods, right? So this will be the very basic one. But if you see this index.html, this gives you some more information. So index.html, open with system editor. So if you see this, it has like two methods, two passed, and you can see passed methods show. So just click on this link show. So it will show you the methods, order of the methods executed. And you can also see the chronological view. So if you click on chronological view, it will also give you the methods, the complete method. See, this is the hierarchy: before suite, after suite, before test, after test. So the before class, like this combination, right? So you'll get the reports, TestNG reports, once you run the test using TestNG XML. So also you can run for this as well. You can verify by running it for other classes. So no, I'll just run it for one more class. We'll show you this one. If you remember, this test was the test which we created yesterday, right? Internet, this login page with the valid login and invalid login, right? So for that, we can run it. We can run the test. So this is valid and this is invalid test done, right? So total 5 tests run, 5 passed. So if you see here, there were like 5 tests. So even setup, all this we considered as tests, if you remember. So we have 5 priority, 5 methods. So all the 5 methods got executed successfully. Now, how do we actually see the output is? So you can see this on the right, you see results of running speed. So this will give you the at a high level what are all passed methods. So each passed method will have a green tick mark on it, right? So you can see here, right? All the methods got executed successfully. You can see green tick mark for all these methods. And now we wanted to check the report. So you should not actually right click this or and check the report, but you have to refresh it. Or else you'll be having in this folder, you'll be having the old report, old test report. So for that, just right click on the folder, refresh, and then open the test output. Now, if you go back and just refresh this, you'll get a new results. See, show. So these are the methods which got executed for our test, right? You can see this is the test and chronological view of methods executed, right? So this is how you can actually view the reports, right? So each method and how much time it took, right? So this is all about the reports of TestNG. By default, TestNG will generate the reports and will be placed in this folder. And once you run the test using the XML, only XML, you will get this uh, test output folder. And once you refresh the project, you can view the results. So the main two files here are emailable report and index.html, which actually gives you the result, right? So just remember that. And now we'll discuss about assertions. What are assertions? So we have two types of assertions: hard assertions and soft assertions. So for that, let me create a class. I'll call it as hard assertions. Okay, before creating a class, let's create a new package. For today, I'll call it as A49. We'll create a new class. I'll call it as hard assertions. So what are assertions for? So first of all, so let's say for example, um, I have some method, right? So say for example, some test title. I wanted to test some title, right? So say for example, I might be giving something like this: hard assertions title equal to e-commerce. This is my expected title. Just assume this is just an example. In the same way, like I might be having the actual title. This is an OP comment, say for example. Now, how do I validate it? So we can actually do it actual title is it equals to, is this equals to, I wanted to validate this. So how do we do that? Actual title dot equals expected title is what we will verify. And if it is so, then we'll print something like, say for example, my test passed, or else it is failed, is what is how we actually validate the test, right? So doing this, like this we can do, and we can just add the test annotation so that TestNG picks up this as a test method, right? So this we can do, but with this what happens? So when you run this, what happens? It will actually either return you test pass or test fail. It says test fail, but still it is passed because it doesn't know that the logic which you write inside it. So it has no clue about it. TestNG has no clue about it. So this is the logic which we have written, right? And inside it, we are actually failing the test case, but it just says passed because it got executed successfully. It didn't get any interruptions in between, right? So it will just say it is passed. and you can see the message test failed here, right? But this is not the case we wanted, right? We wanted the test case itself, test method itself to be failed. So how do you actually fail this test case in that case, right? So we can use assertions for that in that case. So what we can do is, so along with the test passed, right? So we can also say, or for example, so this else part, when the test is failed, right? So we wanted to actually assert something. You will use assertions. What assertions is? They are the validation points. They are the validation points. And how we can write the assertions is, so say for example, for now, I'll just comment this out and then I'll show you. Assert dot assert equals. So there are many methods. Assert is a class and it has many static methods which we can use it for the assertions. Assertions are the validation points. So I'll use one method so that you'll come to know what assertions are, right? So assertion equals, it will take two parameters for comparison, actual and expected. So say for example, this is my actual. I'll just pass actual title here, which I wanted to compare it with expected title, right? So in this case, now let's see. We don't have anything now. We just have two strings and we are comparing those two strings with assert equals method of assert class, right? So assert, we need to import it from TestNG package or org.testng.assert, right? And yeah, assert equals is a static method which is present in assert class, which actually compares these two whatever the objects are, right? So it just compares these two objects and checks for equality. If they are equal, it will say the test is passed, or else it will say it is as failed. So now if you observe, asset equals, it says failed because two are not same, e-commerce and NOP commerce. So if you see, it says failed, right? So this is how you need to use the assertions instead of writing the if-else conditions, right? Or any other logic, customized logic. So test engineer will have no clue about whether it is failed or passed. So we need to use definitely assertions so that test engineer will come to know whether the test is failed or passed, right? So it says fail now because when compared with actual title, expected title is not the same. Say for example, the expected title, even the actual title is also e-commerce. Expected is e-commerce and actual is also e-commerce. In this case, if you observe, it will just compare with these two and it will say passed, right? So assertions are used for the checkpoints. Now, for example, let's actually take back. So even if you can use the assertions in our if else condition as well. Say that was our example, right? So assert dot, there is another method called assert true. So we know that this method is passed, right? So we'll intimate the test engine that mark this as passed. So even if you do not specify this, that's fine. It will mark it as passed always by default. But there's a method called assert true where you can pass a parameter true or false. So assert true is, it is expecting true and we have put pass true. So the test will pass. So how about this? Assert true method where we are passing false. So assert true is expecting true. We are passing a value as false. So this is not matching, right? Assert true is expecting true, but we are passing false. So it will be false. So this will be fail. So in this case, both will be achieved. Like our if condition is achieved and also we have failing the test case on the test engine. We are informing test engine to fail the test case using assertions. So in this case, if you see test passed. So because both are same, expected title and actual title are same, right? So it says it passed. Test passed and passed, right? Passed and it is giving you the method name. All right. Now let's fail it and see. Yeah, this time it is failed because it enters into this loop. It just says test fail and it is fail because assert true, there is a method which actually returns for fail, which actually fails if you pass the false as a if parameter, right? So the result of this expression, you can even pass a Boolean expression here to assert true. So which it evaluates and if the Boolean is false, then it actually fails. It marks the test method as fail. If assert true actually gets the expression as a parameter, Boolean parameter to be expression. If it is evaluated to true, then it will return passed. It will mark. It will inform TestNG, or TestNG will method will be marked as passed. So simple. Assert true, true will be passed. Assert true, false will be fail. Right. So these are the assertion methods. So just we'll see one more example, like what are all the other assertions, important assertions we have. I'll just show you that. These are all like hard assertions. We will see what does it mean and what are soft assertions. For now, I'll just comment this out. I'll not call this as test so that this will not be ran. And we'll create one more test. I'll call it as just, okay, I'll just call it as test. And yeah, we'll just see assertions, like different assertions. So assert dot assert equals, I think you got assert equals, right? So say for example, I have some ABC as a string. You can have any two objects. So say for example, ABC compared with ABC is true, right? So when we run this will be passed. This is passed because both are true, both are same. So assert equals verifies for equality. So in the same way, for example, I wanted to compare any other two objects. Say for example, I wanted to compare some 10, value 10 with 10. So even in this case, this will be passed. It has to be of same data type. In order for comparison, comparing two objects, at least they have to be of the same type, right? So that's how it works. Now, say for example, I'll have it as some 20. So in this case, it will fail. It will compare 10 with 20. Both are not equal, so it will just say fail, right? That's how it works. And now, and also, if you actually, both has to be the of same type. If we actually provide something like ABC compared with 10, so the type itself is not the same, right? So what happens in this case? It will fail definitely, right? So because we are comparing string with number. Now observe. So say for example, I have assert dot assert equals. So in this case, I'll have 100 compared with 100. So will this return true or false, pass or fail? So assert equals 100 and 100, right? So in this case, it has what it has to return. Let's verify. So if we see, it still failed the test because we are passing the first parameter as string. Second parameter is an integer. So integer when compared with string, so it can't even be compared first. So in order to compare, so even though for visibility, you see the content is same. So these two are not treated as the same by Java. As we have kept this in double quotes, this is considered as a string. When string is compared with integer, you can't even compare, right? So assert equals return false. False, and the test case actually failed. Now, this is about assert equals, right? Now, let's see assert. There is something called assert not equals. Assert not equals. So assert not equals. How can we compare it? Say, for example, not equals actually expects false false as the expression evaluation. So 100 when compared with 100 returns true, right? So assert not equals expects false for the test case to be passed. So here it is true. 100 compared with 100 is same, right? It is expecting not equals. See, assert E not equals is expecting not equals condition. But here it is 100 and 100 are same. So it is fail. Now, say for example, I just provide it as 200. In this case, what happens? 100 compared with 200 is not equal. So that is what assertion is expecting. So it is passed. Assert not equals is expecting a false. Right? 100 compared with 200 is false. So assert not equals is actually expecting not equals condition, right? So yeah, it is not equal. So it is written passed. So it is just exactly opposite of assert equals. That's all. Nothing more than that, right? Now, as we have seen, assert true. So like this we have seen, right? So assert true, when we pass it false, so this will be fail. So assert true, and we are passing some Boolean value to be false. So assert true is expected, but we are getting false, right? So in that case, it will actually fail. When I say assert true and also pass true, then what happens? It is passed, right? So assert true and expecting true. Yeah, it will pass in this case. So that's about assert true, right? Not only this, like you can even pass some Boolean expression as well. Say for example, assert true of, say for example, is 10 equals to 10. This is a Boolean expression, right? So 10 equals to 10. Okay, this is just a warning. Assert true. 10 equal to 10 is true, right? So in this case, this is evaluated to true. So assert true expects true, and this is true. So it is passed like this, right? And yeah, this is all about assert true. So there is something called assert false as well. So assert false will expects assert fail condition, assert false. So assert false, in this case, say for example, I wanted to verify 10 equal to 20. So is 10 equal to 20 is false, right? Assert false is expecting false itself. So in this case, test will be passed. See, it will be passed because it is expecting the false itself. Assert false is expecting false. So say for example, I have a condition where I'll compare 10 with 10. So in this case, 10 is equal to 10. So that is true. So assert false of true will be fail. See, fail. So this will return true. Assert false is expecting false, but we got true, right? So in this case, it will be fail. So like this, we can use assert class methods. So there are many, static methods of assert class. So you can see all this according to our requirement, we should be using. We just discussed the main ones, right? We also need one thing called fail. So this will not check any condition. So if you wanted to return or if you wanted to fail the test case, in our case, right? So where we had this. So instead of assert true or false, you can just say assert dot fail. So what does this do? It will just fail the test method. See, without any condition, without any complex methods, it will just, you wanted to fail the method. So you just call assert dot fail method so that the test method will be fail. Instead of this, we can also use assert.fail to fail the test method. So these are the important methods which are of assert class. So assert is a class which is used as a validation point and which is used to actually pass or fail the test method, right? So these are all about the hard assertions. Now let's discuss about soft assertions. So I'll create a new class for soft assertions, and we'll also compare the soft assertion with hard assertion. So this is my soft assertion. So what is soft assertion? Let's create a small test. I'll call it as, let's say for example, okay, first what we'll do is we'll see hard assertions. We wanted to compare hard assertions with soft assertion. So soft assertion. So first we'll see hard assertion to compare with the soft assertion. So say for example, I have something called statement 1 before my assertion. This is my statement 1 before the assertion, and we have one more statement, and then I'll have some hard assertion. Say for example, assert equals, I'll compare 10 with 20. So I know this will return false, right? So this is a hard assertion. Now what happens? I wanted to execute two more statements after this. So I'll just say after assertion, I have two statements, right? Now what will this return? Let's run it. So if you see here, so it just ran statement 1 and 2. And once the assertion failed, right? So once we have assertion and it failed the test method because 10 compared with 20 is a fail condition, right? So assert equals was expecting the equality. So this is inequality, so it was false. So it actually failed the test method. So if you observe, so it didn't execute the statement after the assertion. So that's what we call it as hard assertion. So hard assertion, when hard assertion is encountered, the rest of the statements will be skipped. It will not be executed, right? It will not be executed. That now, so that's about the hard assertion, right? So now let me show you about the soft assertion. So this is soft assertion. So for soft assertion also, I'll just have something like this. I'll just have this written here. We'll just comment it out hard assertions. Just now we wanted to compare. Now we wanted to see soft assertion. So assert equals, right? So but you can't actually use directly assert class. So we have some special special class called soft assert. Soft assert, you know, this call it as STL. So there is a method called soft assert. We have to use soft assert class. So we have to create an object of soft assert. So this also comes from assert. So this comes from asserts package, org.testng assert.soft assert. So in order to use soft assert, we need to create an object of soft assert, and then we need to use this object soft assert equals. So soft assert is a different class. So we will be using that class to call its methods. All right. So this is soft assertion. Let's remember. We created a soft assertion object and we are using its method soft equals. All right. Now, if you observe, so yeah, if you observe statement one before pass, statement two before assertion, and statement one statement after assertion, statement two after assertion. So if you observe the difference, so this failed actually, right? Assert equals actually has to fail the test method. But what happens with the soft assertion is, so it actually passed one thing and it also executed the after assertion statements, right? So with this, what we can conclude is, so soft assertions, it's a soft assertion. It will just it didn't even intimate you. So in that case, so we should get a question. So what's the use of having this, right? So in order to have this affected in our test method, we have to use one more method of soft assert object, sa dot assert all. So in order to have this soft assert, so using soft assert object, we are calling some soft assert methods, right? We are using some soft assert methods. So in order for all these methods to be having impact on the TestNG run, so we have to call at the end. So at the end of the method, we have to call this assert all method. Only then this will be affected. Affected in the sense, so this is inequality. It has to be failed, right? So it will fail the test case. So it will fail the test method. So if you see now, it failed the test method, right? Two things again. It failed this time because we used assert all. So assert all actually found out that assert equals this is inequality and it has to fail. But if you observe, it still went ahead with the execution of the statements written after it, right? So after soft assertion, we had two statements, right? Even those two statements got executed. It just says fail, right? So it will intimate you that the test is fail, but it was fail. But I went ahead with the statements after me is what it is saying, right? So this is the difference between soft assertion and hard assertion. So there is no way in hard assertion you'll go ahead with the execution of the rest of the statements once the assertion fails. So that's the main difference in soft assertion. So so once the soft assertion fails, it will still continue with the execution of the rest of the statements. So that's the main difference between hard assertion and soft assertion. Important interview question. So in the interview perspective, this is very important. So let me put some notes here. Hard assertion and soft assertion. So that you can refer to it later. So we can access hard assertion from us. So assert class, right? So we use assert class for this, and all the methods were static. If hard assertion fails, rest of the statements will not be executed, right? So that's what we have learned just now. And how about the soft assertion? So soft assertion, we can access through the soft assert object. So soft assert is a class and we can access the methods of soft assert using by creating SoftAssert, by creating an object for SoftAssert class, right? And how do we create it? So this is the syntax of it, right? So this is what we have seen. And using SA, we can actually use the methods of it. SA equals like this. And also, if soft assertion fails, then what happens? Still, rest of the statements will be executed. So this is just for your information, so that you can actually refer this later. So that's the main difference. So, and soft assertion, remember, you have to use this assert all at the end. Only then the test will be failed, or else there will be no impact on this methods. So in order for this methods to be impacted and shown in the results of the test engine, so this assert all method for coming from the soft assert object has to be called at the end of this test method. So this is all about the assertions. And so it's always, so most of the time we'll not use the soft assertion, because so you will not come to know, right? So if it goes ahead with the execution of the remaining statements. So most of the time we'll use the hard assertions to fail the test method, right? And so it's always a good practice to have your assertion at the end of your test method, right? Or else you'll not come to know that you know you'll not come to know that where it failed, right? So that's all about the assertions. Okay, so is that clear? Simple. Assertions are the validation points, and these are used for to inform the assertion test engine that this test is failed, or the test is passed or not, so that we can view that in the result. And we have two types of assertions: hard assertion and soft assertion. Hard assertion will not execute the statements once it fails, and soft assertion, even though it fails, it executes the rest of the statements. That's all. That's what we need to know here. And now let's discuss about the another topic. Start a new topic. Dependency methods. What is dependency methods? Say, for example, I have a test case. I have a test case where I just open the app and I wanted to log in, and I wanted to say, for example, this is some banking application. So for the banking application, I need to open the application, I need to log in, and then I wanted to create an account, then view the accounts, and then just come out of it, log out, right? So this is my test case. So how do we actually say, for example, this is my test case, and these are my test steps. So each test step, I'll be having one method for it, right? And I'll have the annotation as test, so that I can run it with the TestNG suite, right? So now let's actually create this. I'll create a new class. I'll call it as dependency methods. So the first method will be login, right? Login or open app. So first we have to open the app. Open app. We'll just say, so instead of system outs, we can just use assertions. We learned assertions, right? I'll use hard assertions. Assert true of true. I'll just say true, so that I'm just intentionally passing this test method, right? So this is about open app. Now I have another method where I log in. So in the same way, like test, right? I wanted to pass it. So like this, I'll be having multiple methods, multiple test methods. There are like, my test case has five steps. So for 5 steps, we'll have 5 methods, right? Login. This will be create account, and yeah, this will be view account, and the last one is logout, right? All right. Now we have these 5 methods where nothing inside, right? We are just saying assert true or true, meaning just pass my test method is what we are saying, right? And I wanted to provide the priority as well, because we wanted to execute in this order, right? So we wanted to execute in this particular order. Oh, first app has to be opened, and then it has we have to log in, create the account, view the account, and then come out of it. That is log out. So that's the priority we wanted. Now let's run this and verify. So this we know it has to run in. So it has to run in that order, in that particular order. You can see open app, login, create account, view account, and log out, right? So you can even see here all the 5 tests ran, 5 passed. So nothing new here, right? So we know this earlier too. All right. Now if you see, if you observe, so these are the priorities, and according to the priorities, the test methods got executed by TestNG, right? So this is fine. Now, for example, for some reason, this failed. Open application itself failed. Maybe because of it, it could be of any reason, right? So maybe slowness of the application, or the application is down for some reason. So in this case, what happens? Let's observe. So if you see in this case, it actually passed the login. One second. Open app. Yeah. See, open app has actually failed, right? But this is the priority one, right, for us. So if you go here, yeah, this will give you. See, open application actually failed. But so if the application is not open, can login actually work? Create account, view account. In this case, we are just asserting to true. So it just is passing. But logically, if you think, even if the application is not open, so you don't even need to run this test, right? So anyway, this test gets failed, right? So in this case, we actually intentionally return assert true to true. But in reality, if you have some code written here to log into the page, right? Say, for example, login form where you inspect username and password login button, and you put that code here, right? So you'll actually you won't even get that form because the open application itself is failed, right? But still, TestNG do not have that clue of that, right? So it just fails this open app, and see, it is going ahead with executing. Just don't concentrate about pass or fail. Just observe the steps here. See, login, create account, view account, or this got went ahead, right? So all the other methods got executed. So in reality, those will fail anyway, right? Because the application itself went down or it is slow, it is still loading. But the test methods are going ahead with login, create account and all, which will fail anyway, right? So how do we actually make TestNG understand that? So this is my method, the first method, priority one method, where only upon this method pass, only then go ahead with the execution of this next method, test method. So if this fails, so for some reason, so do not execute. Say for example, in our case, there are only 4 methods, right? So say for example, there are 10, 20, 30 methods like that, 100 methods. So in that case, it is not useful for us, right? So we know anyway, application itself is down, and application itself was not able to open, right? It was not able to open, navigate to the login page. So in that case, it is failed. So in that case, it's unnecessary for us to execute all the methods. We anyway know all the other methods get failed, right? So how do we actually stop the execution there? We wanted to stop the execution there itself, and don't wanted to execute the test methods anymore, right? So in that case, we can use something called depends on. So there is something called depends on, because so I'll get to that. Depends on methods equal to, so in braces we can specify the method name. What's my method name? Open app is my method name. So what does this mean is, uh, so we are informing TestNG that this is my test priority with 2. So this will be run first. Priority 2 will be picked up, and it just looks for this parameter depends on methods equal to open app. Okay. So it will say it will just verify the result of open app method. So open app method result, if it is true, only then it will go ahead and execute this login method, or else it will not even execute this method. right? So it will not even execute this method. It will just skip it, right? So because it is depending on OpenApp, right? So that's the use of depends on methods. So say for example, if I execute this now, so if you see, so this failed, and if you observe, where is our login? Login is not even there. But if you click on this icon, results of running class. So if you see here, so OpenApp failed. So failed one will be shown with blue cross mark. So you see a small blue cross mark here. So that's failed one. And a yellow cross mark will be skip one. And green tick mark will be the passed one. So these methods went ahead, right? But if you observe these two, so just concentrate only on these two. So OpenApp failed, right? Failed execution, and login got skipped. So why it was skipped? Earlier it was passed, right? So our went ahead with the execution because there we didn't mention anything, right? TestNG had no clue. So it just went ahead and executed all the test methods. So what TestNG knows? It only knows about, it just verifies the annotation @test and picks up all the test methods which have the annotation tagged as @test. And it will just execute those methods on priority basis. Or if you do not specify priority, it will pick up the chronological order. This we know, right? So that's what happened earlier. Now, what we did was like we actually use some parameter called depends on. So my method, see my login method, which has priority 2, is depending on something called OpenApp method is what we are seeing. So with this, it will know that if it fails, so this will be executed only OpenApp method is passed. If it is failed, it will just skip this test method instead of executing it. That's the meaning of depends on method, right? Like this, we can actually add depends on methods for the rest of the methods as well. For example, create account. So create account also depends on, like you can just say login here, right? So anyway, login is verifying OpenApp, right? So indirectly, so okay, indirectly, what happens? Create account is depending on login. So without login, you can't create the account, right? So we can write login itself. But again, login is depending on OpenApp. So indirectly, so even if OpenApp fails, create account will be skipped because login will be skipped, right? So if the above one is skipped, the parent method is skipped, the child method will also be skipped, right? So that's how we can that's how we can actually mention the depends on parameter, right? And say for example, open view account also, I'll just say login, depends on login, and also you can even mention one more method, like multiple methods within depends on. Say for example, I wanted to execute this upon, so I can only view the account after creating the account. Say for example, that's the use case. So in that case, we can mention more than one method as well. So view account depends on login. So login has to be passed, and create account also has to be passed. Only upon that, in that case, only in that case, I wanted to execute view account method, right? And logout will depend on, maybe it doesn't depend on everything. It just depends on login. Once you log in, you get an option of logout. Like this, logically, you have to write the depends on methods. You have to use the depends on methods parameter and pass the right method name. And observe, this has to be the exact name. Say, for example, login, right? So the same name. This is the method name, right? So this can't be the customizable name. So this has to be the exact method name, because we are intimating TestNG about the method, right? So depends on methods, create account, depends on methods, login method, like that. So these are the actual method names. So let me put it here. These are the method names, right? You can have a number of methods specified here, right? Now, if you have, okay, now let's run it as is. So this anyway is depending on OpenApp, and create account is depending on login. Everything is depending on login now, right? Now, if you observe, yeah, see, OpenApp failed, right? Expected true, but found false. But it failed, right? Now, if you observe, login skipped, logout is also skipped, create account skipped, view account is also skipped. Why did this happen? Or you can view it here simply, right? Open app. So it is cross blue mark because it failed, right? And you can see all the yellow cross marks here, meaning these are all skipped. Why this happened? If you observe, So open app failed, right? And login, why it got skipped? It is depending on open app. So it will execute only if open app is passed. So it just skipped it because open app got failed. And why create account got skipped? Login itself is skipped. So it can't go ahead. So it is depending on login method. So create account is also skipped. Same is the case for view account and logout as well, right? So this is what the depends on methods is, the usage of depends on methods. Like this, according to our requirement, we have to actually include these methods, right? Now, for example, this is true, right? So this will be executed, login will be executed. For example, for some reason, login failed. Say, for example, invalid credentials, or so for some reason, login button is not enabled, like that, and login failed. Now observe the result. So in this case, yeah, in this case, if you see open app passed, right? Application got opened, login failed. So login failed. So rest of the statements, rest of the methods got skipped. See, because all the other methods are depending on login. See, like this, right? Say for example, login is also passed, right? So in that case, everything gets passed, but create account failed. Failing. We are asserting create account to be failed. So in this case, what happens? Just observe this. Open app, passed, login passed, create account got failed, and view account got skipped. Because view account, it is depending on both login and create account. This will be an uncondition. So both login and create account has to be passed in order for view account to be executed. So view account got skipped here because create account got failed, right? So see, view account got skipped. And logout is just depending on login, and login was passed. So logout was picked up for execution, and it got executed successfully, right? So this is how you can actually control the execution of the methods, whether they have to be executed or not, by using the parameter called depends on methods by specifying it within the test annotation, right? So this is the syntax of it. This has to be used like this: depends on methods equal to, in curly braces, we need to specify the method name, exact method name, as a string. So, and we can specify more than one method name separated by a comma, like this, right? All right. So this is all about depends on methods. Is that clear? Any questions? All right. Now let's actually jump on to next topic: grouping. What is grouping? So, say for example, I have some class 1, right? And I have some methods like this: M1, M2, M3, like this. These are my test methods in class 1. I have class 2, for example, M4, M5, M6, M7, like this. Like this, I have multiple classes. And each class its own methods, right? Like this. Now, so how do we execute? Say, for example, I wanted to execute all these methods in all these classes. So we will have the test annotation specified on top of each method. And then we will actually include all these 3 classes in the TestNG XML. This we know how to create the TestNG XML automatically. We have learned, right? We will create one TestNG XML like that, and we'll execute the XML so that all the methods within all these 3 classes gets executed. This we know. And we can specify other annotations like before class, before suite, after suite. All those annotations we can specify according to our requirement. We'll use those annotations only if required, right? So I'm just informing you that whatever we have learned can be applied even here, right? So in this type of situations also, right? So we have, say for example, we have some situation like this, some 3 classes and its own methods. Now I wanted to execute. So if you actually specify @test annotation, so TestNG picks up those methods for execution. So it will execute those methods, all those methods which are tagged as @test, which are tagged with the @test annotation, right? So in that case, what happens? You have no other control. Like once you specify @test, all the methods will be executed. For example, so in some cases, what happens is, so in real time, you will not be executing. There will be hundreds of methods, right? So hundreds of test cases will be there, and each test case will have again multiple steps in it, and each test step we represent it with one method, right? So it will be like nearly like hundreds of methods will be there in real time, right? It will be even close to 1,000 or even cross thousands of methods. So it will be very vast, right? Very extensive. So in that case, you can't actually execute all the methods. So it will take long time for all the methods to be executed for every build. So build is like so there will be so development team build develops the application, right? So they go on write the code and checks in the code. So the code will be in the source control, and using that there will be build tools which actually generates the nightly builds. And build is like you can using the build you can actually install your application. So that's what the build is like. If you wanted to install any software, right? So on Windows, what do? You download the software, you get some exe file. So you click on it, and then it will actually starts with the instructions to install, right? So that's what we call it as, that exe file is what we call it as build. So the entire application is packed and is coming it is provided as one installer. That's what we call it as exe file and installation file, or we can call it as a software also, right? And then we are installing it. Then we actually get the access to the application, right? Now, in order to get that, so developers, so the development team, the entire development team will be working on different modules, and they will be checking in the sense they will be having their code placed in some common location. So using the everything of using consolidated uh, code of all the developers, the build will be generated. So that's what happens in real time, right? So in that case, what happens is, so let me show you here. So you have multiple classes. You have multiple classes like this, and you have multiple test methods within each class, right? But so say for example, this is build tool, and it actually is generating a nightly build. So every nightly build will have some changes to the functionality or some fixes to the already existing issues. So in that case, if you run your tests, if you run the automation script on all the methods, it will take long time, right? So just to, if there is any small change which is actually impacting the functionality. So this, in order, if you run all the tests, right? So it will take long time. So in order to know that the build is stable or not, or the build is working or not. So if you run all the methods, it will take a long time. So, but we don't want it to run like that. We wanted to run only sanity test. Sanity test is we will pick up only some test cases, high-level test cases, and then we will run only those test cases just to confirm that the new changes are not affecting the whole functionality. The high-level test cases we will test it. So once the sanity test is passed, then we can go with the regression test. So regression testing is like we'll pick up more test cases for execution. And just to confirm again, so the new functionality is not impacting the existing functionality. That's regression testing, right? Like that, we will have functional testing as well. Functional testing is testing the actual functionality of the application or the new functionality which came into the application. That's functional testing. All these are the concept of manual testing. So you don't need to know that now, but just to understand the grouping concept, I am explaining all this. Right now, for example, I wanted, I have something called sanity testing, right? So for the sanity testing, I don't wanted to run all these methods. I wanted to pick up only some of these methods and run the sanity testing. The same way, I don't want it to run all the methods for regression. I'll pick up only some of the methods for regression, and I wanted to run only some of the method functions. Say, for example, let's take only two, sanity and regression for now, right? And I wanted to pick up only some of these methods of these classes to run as sanity for my sanity testing. So how do we run it? So once we tag the methods using annotation @test, so that will be picked up by the test engine, and it will execute all the methods. So how do we control that? We wanted to execute, we will specify the test annotation method anyway, because TestNG will not even pick up the method if we do not specify the @test. But still we wanted to actually make TestNG choose only specific methods for our sanity test, right? So that's our goal now. So how do we achieve that? Let's see that now. Now if you observe, so let me actually create a example for that. So for that, what we'll do is, I'll create a new class. I'll name it as login test. We don't need main method for this. We'll create multiple methods here. So say for example, login with email is one method. And this is my test method. We'll just call it as, this is login with email. Right? So in the same way, I'll have two more methods, right? So you can either log in with, you'll get an option with login with Google, right? And also you might get an option logging with Facebook like this, right? So this is Google. Like this, I have different methods, for example. So these are my methods. This is my class, right? Now, when I specify @test, what happens? Everything will be picked up, right? So I'll also provide the priorities. For example, at equal to 1. I'm specifying the priority to my methods, right? 2, 3. So there are 3 methods. All right. Now, this is fine. Now, if we run this, so what happens? It will be executed in this order, right? So, okay, before running like this, we'll create another class. So just to prove our statement, right? So I'll create 3 classes. I'll even create sign up test methods, right? Or I'll just call it a sign up test. And we'll create three more methods here. Sign up with email is my method, which is also a test method, which has priority as 1. Okay, I just ignore that. We'll follow for this location. I'll create a method. So I'll call it as sign up with email. I'll have 3 methods in it again. So we'll have it as, this is sign up with email. We'll have two more methods. We'll say sign up with Google, sign up with Facebook, right? These are just for our understanding. I'm creating some methods in some classes, right? All right. Now we'll have @test, and then we'll specify the priority. All right. So in the same way, we'll create one more class. This will be the last class. I'll name it as payment test. We'll have only two methods. So this is payment in INR. This is payment in USD. These are all like, just we are taking an example here, right? So for understanding the grouping concept. At the rate test, and we can set some priority. All right. Now, if you observe, we created some classes and some methods within it, right? So, and we have also set the priorities. Now, say for example, so this has three methods. Sign up has three methods and payment has two methods, right? So we have like a good amount of classes and methods now. Now, I say for example, I wanted to run this all these methods within the all these classes. So how what do we usually do? Login test, payment test, sign up test. Right click on it. What we do? TestNG convert to TestNG, and then we'll choose a package in where we wanted to actually create the TestNG XML, right? So here I wanted to create, for example. So what do we do? Or what we can do is, so yeah, we can even create like this. And then if you see, if you go to the TestNG XML, so this is how the TestNG XML has been generated for us, right? So now in order to run this test, what we usually do? You just right click on it and just do run as, right? So if you run it like this, what happens? See the console output, right? So yeah, you can see the console output here. This is login with email. So all the tests, right? Three, and two tests. All the tests got executed, right? So yeah, this we know. Now we wanted to actually control this. So say for example, we don't want it to actually have this like this, right? So we wanted to execute only some of these methods for our sanity test. These are our classes and these are different methods, and we don't wanted to execute all of these methods, but we wanted to run only sanity methods. We will call some of the methods as sanity, and we wanted to run only some of them. So in that case, how do we actually say that? How do we actually inform TestNG that to only run some of these methods? Because TestNG only knows if you specify at the rate test annotation, it knows that it has to be picked up for that those methods as for execution, right? That is what we have learned till now. Now we wanted to control that. We wanted to within test annotations itself, we wanted to include some filter to include only to actually so that we can use that filter runtime to run the only that methods, right? So how do we actually mention that is? So if we observe here, so I'm gonna include another parameter here. So which I'll call it as groups, where we can call it as like this. Groups equal to sanity. Groups equal to sanity like this. Whatever I wanted to call my test methods as sanity, test case, or test methods, then I will be specifying those methods as in the groups. A parameter called groups equal to sanity like this. So that these are tagged as sanity. The group has been tagged as sanity. Now what happens? Now, if so, these are all sanity, right? Now, in the same way, I'm gonna have this as regression. So login test might be, so I wanted to have this as sanity, right? Sign up might be my regression. Or you can have this as sanity or that as regression. Anything. This is just an example, right? So I'll have all these test methods as regression. I'm tagging it like that, right? So, and I wanted to have this as, so payments is important for me and I can have more than one. So I can specify more than one group, more than one group here. So how do you specify that? For example, I'll specify it as sanity and also regression like this. So I wanted to, whenever you're running only sanity test cases, I wanted these methods to be part of that. Whenever you're running regression, I wanted these methods to be part of the test execution because these methods are very important to me. So I have included sanity and regression as well. So like this, you can actually group or you can tag the methods by using the groups, by using the uh, parameter called groups within the test annotation. And this is customizable. This will not be the same string, like right. So this can be any ABC XYZ as well, right? So this you'll come to know. So this will use it in the TestNG XML to control the execution. For example, so this is our use case, right? So how do we actually control it? So these are the classes anyway. So we'll create a new tags now. Observe carefully. So groups, we'll specify groups, and then we'll include one more tag, run. In all the groups, run. So what I wanted you to run is include name equal to. So I'll say include name equal to. So this is my include part, and I can just specify something here, like right, like sanity. That's it. So with this, what happens is, so TestNG will come to know. So there is some grouping concept here. So the test methods are have groups, and I have to run. So I have to run the group which has the tag called sanity, which has the groups with the name called sanity is what it will come to know, right? So that's what we need to mention it here. So groups, we wanted to run the groups with the name sanity, right? Now observe, I'm running it now. Now, if you observe, this is login with email, login with Google, Facebook, and payment. So why payment is on ran? So login we know. So if you observe, login we know it has sanity. It has group mentioned as sanity. But why payment test has run? It do have the sanity. So it has sanity as well as regression. But sanity is part of this groups of this payment test methods, right? So once it sees sanity, it will run that. So it's like a or condition. So sanity and regression. If you specify both, so it is like if even sanity is present in these groups, so then that will be picked up for execution. So the point to be noted here is sign-up tests were not executed, right? So even though the TestNG XML has included that as part of the execution. So this is not picked up because the groups does not have the sanity as a tag, right? It has a different tag. So that was not picked up for execution. So this is how you can control the test method execution in TestNG using groups concept. So this is how you can actually group your test methods. Right now, let's validate for some other inputs. Say, for example, I wanted to run only for regression. Okay, for now it will be sanity, right? So let's take some notes here. So whatever we are doing here, right? So I'll just call this as, we mark like this, right? We mark sign up by email also as regression, right? All right. Now, and also payment in rupees or payment in INR and payment is dollars. This we mark it as both sanity and also regression. All right. So this is how we marked, right? Now, let's see the execution. What are all we executed? All sanity. We wanted to run all sanity tests. So how did we run? We just include name equal to sanity. Now I wanted to run all regression. So for that, what we need to do? We just need to replace sanity with regression. That's all. And now observe the output. So run as. Now observe the output. Sign up with email. Only sign up got executed this time. Payment will be anyway executed because it's part of. So payment has both sanity and regression. So whatever is specified, either sanity or regression here, this will be part of the execution because it has both tax sanity and regression. But if you observe the sign up, so sign up has a regression. So sign up has only regression. So, and we are running only regression. So this is picked up. But login test was not picked up because it doesn't have the tag as regression or the group as regression, right? So this concludes that only regression. So if you include only regression, whatever group name you specify here and the group name, whatever methods has, only those will be executed, right? So that's what we mean by all regression tests. Now we'll see one more round, right? Like all sanity, but not regression. We wanted to run all sanity, but not regression. So what does that mean? And how do we do that? So in that case, we have to include sanity and we have to exclude regression. So we have something called exclude tag as well. So I wanted to execute only sanity, all sanity, but not regression. Only sanity, but not regression, right? So what does that mean? Let's execute it. So in this case, now if you observe, only sanity got executed, but not regression in the sense. So purely sanity, not regression. So if it has regression, so it has to be excluded, is what we are saying with this. So if you observe, sign up will anyway not be executed because it is regression. So we are clearly saying exclude regression. So sign up test as regression, or you can just look it here. So simple. Sanity is login, regression is sign up, sanity and regression is payment, right? So what happened? Only sanity, not regression is what we said. Not regression in the sense this will be excluded. So only sanity, not regression is what we say. Only sanity. It has sanity and regression as well. So this has to be included, this has to be excluded is what we said. So it has both. So in that case, what happens is, so as we said, only sanity, not regression. So this will come as a in the case where it has regression, right? So it has sanity, but not regression, right? So in this case, it has sanity and also regression. So this will not be picked up for execution. Only sanity test methods will be picked up for execution, right? So that we can clearly see here. So login has only sanity. So this is the reason only that were picked up for execution. Now we'll see the reverse of it. Only regression, but not sanity. But not sanity. So for that, we just need to reverse the order. So include will include regression and exclude will say sanity. All regression, but not sanity, right? Now observe the output. So it will only execute sign up methods because login anyway has sanity. We said like exclude sanity, right? So this login will not be executed. And only regression, not sanity, right? So if you see, this has both sanity and regression. So as it has sanity, it will be excluded. That's all. So say for example, in some case, I wanted to execute all with both sanity and regression. This is unconditioned. I wanted to execute only test methods. So this is very important to me. And I wanted to execute only only groups which has both sanity and regression. Both sanity and regression. That is, in our case, this one. So only this class has the methods which has the groups specified as both sanity and regression. Only these methods I wanted to execute. So how do we do that in that case? So if you say that include for both, right? So if you actually include for both like this, what happens? We have seen this. This will be an OR condition. So it will just think that you wanted to execute all regression and all sanity. It will actually pick up all the methods for execution. But this is not what we wanted. We wanted to execute methods which has both the names, both the groups specified, right? So in that case, how do we do that? So in that case, so what we need to do is if it has both, right? So the sanity might be present for some of the methods in some other classes. Regression might be present for some other methods, but we wanted to execute methods which has groups both sanity and regression. So in that case, what we can do is, so we can include one more group name for this. Say for example, this is my functional group. and I wanted to execute this. So we'll provide some name to it, some new group name to it, wherever we have sanity and regression. So we'll call them with some new name, some functional like that. And then we can provide that here. So I'll just comment this out, and then we can include functional here. That's all. With this, what happens? Only functional will be executed. That is only it was a problem with commenting. So now if you see, it executed only payment. This is payment in INR, USD, because so we wanted to run group, we wanted to run the method which has groups tagged both sanity and regression. Both. It has to have both. So in that case, we can't run it directly in the test engine, right? So for that, we just logically we gave some name to such methods which has both sanity and regression. That method, that name, we are using it here, right? In the TestNG XML. That's it. So with this, what happens? All the functional tagged groups will be, methods will be executed. That's all, right? So this is all about, so all the combinations we have covered, right? So how do you actually execute the groups? Now, we'll see something called, yeah, is that clear till here? Is everything clear? Any questions on grouping? Why we need groups and why we are tagging the methods as groups? Is the topic clear? Okay, I'll take it as yes, and we'll move ahead with the next topics. Parameterization. So the next topic is parameterization. We can actually, so parameterization is all about passing parameters to the test methods. So we can do that using two ways. So the first way is using DataProvider, something called DataProvider, which will be similar to data-driven testing. We'll even discuss that why we need this, right? And also using TestNG XML file. Using XML file, we can pass the parameters. These two ways. First, we'll see DataProvider. How do you actually use DataProvider for actually passing the data to the test methods, right? For that, let us create a method class. So I'll create a class. I'll call it as DataProvider example. Yeah, for this, we will take an example, like we'll just log in, and then we'll take an example of login. So I wanted to test this login form and wanted to check this with different combinations of usernames and passwords, right? So this is our test case. We wanted to test this login form with different combinations of username and password. So for this, let's let's start writing the code. Okay. For this, we definitely need WebDriver. So it's an application, right? So we wanted to automate an application. So WebDriver, and then I'll have a setup method. So setup method for this, and then what else we need? We need takedown method, where we'll actually write the code for closing the automation script, right? So in between, we wanted to actually test the login. So this will be my, I'll, I'll have some test login here, where we'll check the functionality of login, right? So this is all what we need, right? Now setup. What is setup? So first we need to instantiate the driver, new Chrome driver. All right, and then manage dot. I'll include implicit wait here. These are nothing new to us, so I'm going a bit fast. The duration dot of seconds. This is my setup method. All right. Now this is login, right? Login. I wanted to test this login. So first, what we need to do, we need to navigate. Navigate to the URL, right? Driver.get. We'll get to this URL. All right, we'll get to this URL and then we usually maximize the window, right? So let's do that. Driver dot manage dot window dot. All right. Now we wanted to automate this, right? So we wanted to inspect this username and password and pass the parameter street, right? So for now, what we can do is, right? So driver dot find element. I'll pass some username here. It is standard. It has some standard user. I'll pass this standard user and it has to be in double quotes. This is the password. All right. And when you click on the login, it has to log in. All right. So import this by. And we wanted to validate it. Once it is logged in, we wanted to validate it. So how we wanted to validate it is, so for example, standard user secret source, right? So once we log in, we can take something here. Swag Labs is present in the login page as well, so we can't take this. So we can let's take this products. Let's take this products. So we'll get the text of that page. So I'll call it as home page, and then we'll write some if condition. So if my home page equals products, this is the text, right? So if this is the case, we'll assert. We'll just pass the test case. Assert true, and we'll pass it as true. Else, if that is not the case, we'll assert it to be false. Assert true to be false. Or you can even use assert. We learned assert fail method, right? So you can even use assert fail as well. So this is all about the login page. Simple one, right? So we just set up. So we are just launch. We have user setup method where we are actually launching the Chrome browser, and test login method is actually testing the login form. Once it is logged in, we'll get the product. So that's what we are validating here. All right. Now tear down actually. So we will just write the code, the routine code, like if driver not equals to null, then we wanted to quit it. Use quit method, right? This is in teardown. All right. So now if you observe, I'll use some annotation here. Before class, so entire in this class, there could be some methods here, but setup has to be ran once. Teardown has to be run at the end. That's what we can mention it here. All right. Now this is the actual test login method, right? So we'll include it as test. We'll call it as test method. Right. This is fine till now, right? Now let's actually run it. Run it and verify the output. Yeah, you can see it logged in, and the validation is also successful. So it says pass test login, right? So it says one test run, one pass. Fine. Now I wanted to check this login page with all of these combinations, right? So I wanted to check with all these combinations. So for example, like standard user secret sauce, right? So all these combinations, all these usernames, I wanted to validate in this login form. So how do we provide this? So if you remember, we have seen this for data-driven testing. We have given this in the Excel form, right? In the Excel file, and we have read that in using the Apache FOIL libraries, we have read that into our utils. Using utils, we are able to read that, and we are able to get that into a list, and we read it from the list, right? So the same thing can be followed, but if you have like Excel sheet, like Excel utils, this was our Excel utils, right? And then from our code, from our class, we actually call this, and we got the, so that's how we actually read the data using the from the Excel file, and from this we actually passed it to the application, right? So application under test. So that's how we did it for the data-driven testing, right? Now we wanted it to, we don't want it to use the Excel file. So you can use the Excel file, but the if you have like lot many entries, right? Say for example, you have some 20, 30 entries like that, and you wanted to test it. In that case, you can use Excel file, because this involves like file IO, right? Opening the file and closing the file, all this. So you will have that performance impact. So if you have only small number of input, like say for example, some 5, 6 inputs, right? Test data you wanted to test, then you don't need to go for Excel sheet. So in that case, we'll use something called DataProvider. That we'll see it now. So I'm just seeing you, because you might get this question of why you are using DataProvider. We have already seen, and we have already learned Excel file, reading the test data from Excel file, right? So Excel file, we have to use it only you have lot of data, like lot more data. Say if it is in a big number, like 20, 30, like that, right? For a small test data, like small number of test data, like 5 or 6, if it is less than 10, you can go from DataProvider. So let's actually discuss about DataProvider, then you'll come to know, right? Now, I wanted to pass this. So what I wanted to test here, so I wanted to pass, so this is my test login. And if you see this username and password, right? So this I wanted to check with different combinations, that is with different test data. So how do I pass? So definitely we need to pass to this test login method. So this two has to be parameterized, and we have to pass this two values to this method. So how do we pass it? So we have something called DataProvider. So first, let's actually define a method. So I'll define a method, login data. I will actually return object of two-dimensional object array, right? This method is returning two-dimensional object array. All right. Now, object of data will assign the values to it. This is a two-dimensional array. Now, we wanted to pass the data to it. So, what's the data? We know what's the data is. It's a combination of username and password. All these username and password, I wanted to test it. So, this can be of any type, right? So, in our case, both are strings. So, we don't know what this could be, right? So, in that case, if we don't know what type it could be, then we will actually specify the return type, or the to hold the data, we'll specify it as object, because we have been discussing this. Object is the parent class of all the classes, right? So you can, this can hold, right? This any data type, object data type can hold. So we have a two-dimensional array specified, which is of object, and we are actually storing it in all the usernames and passwords in it, right? And this data, we have to return it. So return data is what I'm saying. So this login data method is returning object array. What is the object array? Here we have defined it. Here we have provided the actual data and returning this object, which is of two-dimensional array. Now we will call this as data provider, something called new thing, new annotation called data provider, where we'll specify some name to it. I'll just call it as credentials, creds. and this has to be imported. So if you observe, this has to be imported from TestNG annotations. This is also another annotation, right? So data provider at the rate data provider. This has to be as is. D and P has to be uppercase, everything. This is an annotation. So it has to be used as is, right? And we have to provide a name for it. So this is important. So what did we do here? We created a method and we wanted to pass some test data to our test login method. So in order to provide that, we have specified some two-dimensional array here, right? So within the two-dimensional array, we provided the data and we are returning the data, right? In a method called login data. And we are calling this login data method as data provider because it is actually providing us the data for testing, right? So it is actually providing us the test data, right? So we are calling it as data provider and we are providing it a name. I'm calling it as creds, right? Now, how do you pass this? So how do this test login get the data from test provider? That we'll see. How do we pass it, right? So what we'll do is here in the test annotation, we'll say data provider get the data from a provider with the name called creds is what we'll say. With this, it will come to know it has to read the data from a there is something called data provider with the name creds is what it will come to know. And it has to read the data from that method is what we'll know. So as we specify data provider equal to creds, so test login will come to know that there is some data provider with name creds. So here it is. It has to read the data from it is what it will come to know. And how it will read. So we are passing two-dimensional array, right? So this is object. So observe here, this is object array, right? Now this object array we are gonna capture it into strings. So we know internally it's a string, right? We know we are passing string. So we are actually holding that into, we are actually having the parameters like this. So with this, what happens is this method, it will search for a provider called data provider. It will search for an annotation called data provider and with which it has a name called creds. With that, it will actually get the data and pass it to the parameters of it test login method. And now we can use this in place of this. And just copy this, comment this out, and we'll pass this parameters. This is username, this is password. With this, what happens? So let me repeat it. So what is data provider is? Data provider actually can be used to define a method and we will be returning always a two-dimensional array where we will specify n number of inputs here, test data. So this will not be only two input. Here you see only two rows, two columns, right? This could extend to n number of columns, right? And in the same way, you can have n number of rows as well, n number of rows, n number of columns. Still, it will be a two-dimensional array, right? First dimension representing rows and the second representing the columns of that specific rows, right? So this we have written, right? An object array which is two-dimensional. So we have specified a method name to it. And the important part is data provider annotation. We have to specify a annotation called @data provider and we have to name it. We'll specify a name to it. And then that will actually use it in a method where we wanted to read the data. So test login is a method where it wants to read the test data, right? So we are specifying on top of test login to go and refer this data provider. So even this data provider also has to be like this. Observe this. It has DS lowercase, PS uppercase, whereas the actual data provider method has both in uppercase. This needs to be as is. That's the reason I am specifying it again, right? So here we'll specify the data provider name. So with this test login name will actually get this object array, the entire array as a two-dimensional array, and it will actually pass every time. It works as like enhanced for loop. For each time, it will have one input. So it will read the first input and pass it to the two parameters, user and password. And the rest of the method will execute as is, like we have seen. Like once you pass it, so it will read that the parameters will pass to this method, and the execution will work as usual, right? So, and the second input, once that is done, second input will be read, third, fourth, like that, right? So here we have 6 inputs, right? So now let's run it and verify. we know it has to fail for 1. I think it will fail for 1. Standard user, it will pass. Logged out user, it will fail. It will wait for 10 seconds. We have an implicit wait of 10 seconds, right? So it will still wait for 10 seconds. Yeah, it will go ahead with the rest of the credentials. And yeah, done. Now if you observe the result, so we have one failure. Yeah, we know logged out user, it will fail, right? So for the 6 inputs, you can see the stats. 6 runs, 5 passes, 1 failure. This is expected, right? So the one of the credentials will not work, we know that, right? So this is how you get the output, right? You can even see it here. So test login is the method which has been executed multiple times with these parameters. So you can see the parameters also it is giving, and for which it failed, you can see the blue cross mark, right? So this is how you can actually run the methods run the same method by passing the multiple test data using DataProvider. And now if, say for example, I don't want it to run it for all the indices. Say for example, I have 6 inputs here, right? Now, and I wanted to run it for only some of them. Say for example, so these are represented with indexes. So the first one being 0th index, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So though there are 6 inputs, 6 number of test data. So as the index starts with 0, so I wanted to specify it. I wanted to run it for specific indexes, 0, 2, and 4. So 0 is this, 2, and 4. Only for these inputs, I wanted to run it. So that you can specify using a parameter called indices. Now, if you observe, I'll run it once again. It will run only for 3 inputs, although you have 6 inputs here. So we are specifying what indexes it has to pick up. That we can specify. It will run only for that indexes. Yeah. Now, if you observe, yeah, it ran only for 3, right? So you can see the inputs as well. 0, 2, and 4. All right. So this is all about DataProvider. Any questions? Okay. So now we'll see a small topic. How do we do the parallel testing? This is important and very small topic. We'll cover this. It should not take more than 10 minutes. So if you see here, like we wanted to execute in parallel. Say for example, I'll be creating a class here, new class, where we'll be actually validating some methods. So for example, I'm going to create a new class here. I'll call it as parameter test. Okay. And observe this. So we have a setup here. Setup class, which is actually navigating. It has to actually instantiate the driver as well. Driver equal to new clone driver. And implicit wait getting URL, right? So this will not be the parameters. Setup will be the URL. So you wanted to navigate to this. I'll explain you this, the test case. So what we wanted to achieve here is we wanted to actually navigate to this demo.opencart.com, right? So we'll go to this. We'll navigate to this URL. We'll just check this logo. That will be our first test. And then we'll get the title of it. And we'll also get the URL of it. So these will be the 3 tests we are going to perform on this website. So for that, if you see, I have setup method, which will run before class. And this is all common, right? Instantiating the driver class, implicit wait, navigating to the particular URL, and then maximizing the window, right? We have a wait time. And then just for the logo to be present, right? So, or you can just comment this out as we have implicit wait. It's up to us. And we have 3 methods, which checks for test logo. So this actually checks for this logo, if it is displayed or not. And we are adding assert equals status So if it is present, it will be true. So that this test case will be passed. Same is the case for test title as well. So the title has to be your store. So we are using assert equal. So driver.getTitle will actually get you the actual title of the web page, and then we are comparing it with your store. So if it is both equal, then it will be passed. Same is the case for test URL as well. So the current URL, we have passed it and we are asserting with equals. So we are getting the current URL, we are verifying it with this URL, the expected URL. If it is true, it will pass the test method, right? So these are the three methods. As these are the three test methods, we have specified @test for them and have provided the priority to them. And there's a teardown method and a setup class, right? So setup method, simple one, right? So now let me execute this first. Now if you observe, it has to execute three methods. So even though it has 5 methods, setup and teardown were not tagged as @test annotation, right? So those will not be considered as the actual tests. Only 3 tests: testing logo, title, and URL. So once it is done, it has to say 3 tests passed. 3 test methods passed, right? Yeah, done. It has to quit. Yeah, it quits, and you can see three passed, right? All right. Now this is simple. We know this. Now I wanted to pass this. No. First, what we'll do is we'll run it from the XML file. So I'll create an XML file for this TestNG XML. Observe now. We do the other XML, right? So I'll call the earlier one as I'll just rename it. Grouping XML, the last XML. Now I'll create a new package for this parameter test. So convert to TestNG. All right, now we have a TestNG XML, right? So this is the TestNG XML for parameter test. All right. Now, what I'm gonna do here, observe. So if you run this, it will execute the 3 tests, right? We know that. Now, what I wanted to do, I wanted to pass the parameter. I just don't wanted to. I'm running it on the Chrome driver, right? So I wanted to run it on another browser. So and I wanted to dynamically select that browser name from the TestNG XML. So how do you do that? From the TestNG XML, I wanted to pass that as a parameter. So in that case, how do we pass that as a parameter? That I'll show you now. So if you see this under the test, we can actually specify the parameters. Say for example, parameter name equal to browser. I can specify something like this, and value equal to Chrome. If I specify Chrome, it has to work for Chrome like that. Parameter, right? And then we'll close this tag here. Now what happens? This will actually pass the parameter, right? So this will actually pass the parameter name as browser and value as Chrome. So this will be accepted by these parameters methods, right? So in order this to accept, so what we need to actually set it up here. So here we'll specify the parameters like this. This has to read the parameters. What are the parameters? We are specifying browser. Browser is my parameter, and I'll just call it as string br. So this br will take it, and using this, we'll write a switch case. So what I'll do here is I'll write a small switch case so that we are not going to have this. It will not always be Chrome driver, but we'll actually select this dynamically from the TestNG XML, right? So TestNG XML, we have specified parameter name equal to browser and value equal to Chrome. So this will be passed on to here. So this setup method is taking parameters. So in curly braces, we are specifying the browser. So that will be read by this parameter setup method, br, right? So this br method will have the value as Chrome now. With that, we are converting it to lowercase and verifying it if it is Chrome. We are instantiating the driver to the Chrome. If it is Edge, we'll instantiate to the Edge. Firefox, right? So if we specify some invalid browser name, right? So we'll just say it is an invalid browser and we just need to return it. See, we are breaking it and we're coming out the switch, all this we know. And rest of the code will continue. This is fine. But it is an invalid browser, right? We have to return it because you don't have the valid driver instantiated and you go ahead with the execution, then it will fail, right? So we are returning it in the sense, so it will just stop the execution here itself, right? So that's the logic here. So the only point we need to note here is we are passing the parameters from the TestNG XML to our test methods. See how we are doing that? We are passing it like this. We are passing it with a tag called parameter, name browser, value equal to Chrome. Like this, you can pass a number of values. Like say, for example, I wanted to pass URL as well. I can pass the URL as well. For example, this URL, right? So I wanted to pass it dynamically. So how can we do that? URL, and then you can just pass it as URL. You just call this as URL, right? Now, you'll pass this here. It will be simple. You can pass n number of parameters here like this. All that we need to pass is name of the parameter and a value to it. So the corresponding name and value to it. So if you see here, the name and the names you are specifying to the parameters and the values of it are passed to these parameters of these methods. So simple. So these are the actual parameter names. This will match with the name of the parameter here. And the value which you are passing it from the TestNG XML will be passed to these parameters in the methods. That's all. And this will be used in the code. Right? And now, if you specify Chrome, it will run for Chrome. And if you specify some Firefox, right? So it will run for the Firefox like that. So let me run it for Chrome for now. So if you see here, this is running for Chrome, and we are passing the parameter dynamically from the TestNG XML. Yeah, you can see total test run 3, pass 3, right? So this is how you can run the test. Now, I wanted to run this for other browsers as well. So how do we do that? In that case, we need to actually I can just modify it something like this. Firefox. Say I wanted to run it for Firefox. I just need to modify the value here. That's all. So run it. So if we run it just by modifying it to the Firefox, that will be run on the Firefox browser. See, this time Firefox browser got opened, and the same test will be ran on the Firefox browser. So that's the beauty of parameterization. So you don't need to change the code. Even at the code level, you don't need to change, right? So you just change it in your TestNG XML. So once you write the code, you can just open your TestNG XML and drive your application using the TestNG XML itself. Yeah, Firefox will be very slow, so you have to bear with it. I must have ran it for Edge browser. Yeah, finally it's done. Yeah, you can see finally it ran. 3 tests, 3 pass, right? All right. Now, what we need to do here is, so if say for example, I don't want it to run it like this. I wanted to, so we either run it for Chrome or Firefox like this, right? No, I wanted to run it for all of them. So in that case, what we can do is, so this is one test, right? So you can have multiple tests like this. Right? So this is my test and I'll call this as Chrome test, right? And I'll pass this as Chrome. And this will be my Firefox test, right? So you can just remove this thread count for now. We'll come to this later. We'll have I'll call this as Firefox test. This is my Chrome test, right? This is Firefox test. Like this, we can specify the test. The classes will be the same, right? So this will be edge test. We just need to pass the right values to it. That's it. So see, this will be one test which will run on Chrome. This will be another test which will run on Firefox. This will be another test which will run on Edge. See, I'll show you that once the browser gets open, I'll just cancel it. It will take some time, right? Oh, this is in serial order. So what happens in serial execution is it will go one by one. So first it open Chrome browser, right? So it will execute the test case for Chrome and then it will execute it for the Firefox and then Edge like that. It will go in serial. So we are going to address that issue as well once this is done. So how to run the parallel test? See, Chrome is done, right? So it has to using takedown method driver.quit. It got closed. Now observe. Second test, Firefox got opened. So the same test will be ran on Firefox as well. And then Edge will be picked up. Like this, we can run our test, same test on a number of browsers, right? We are just specifying, we are just controlling on what it has to be run with the TestNG XML itself, if you observe. And that too, we are parameterizing it. So if you want on what browser you wanted to run it, right? That's the beauty of parameterization. So Firefox is also done. Firefox will usually be slow. So, and Edge browser now, it will be open. This is what we call it as serial execution. Serial execution is like it will be executed one by one. The test will be executed one by one. So we'll see how to execute in parallel also now. This is Edge browser, and yes, Edge browser is also done. So it will be closed, and you can see the result now. The total of 9 tests got run, 3 per each browser, and all 9 got passed, right? All right. Now we'll see. This is serial execution, right? One by one. But I wanted all these tests to be run in parallel. So there is no dependency, right? So all the tests can be run in parallel, right? So how do we run it? So we need to specify parameter called parallel. Parallel equal to test, right? To test in the sense, so we are specifying, I have some many tests here. All these tests has to be run in parallel is what we are saying. And also we need to specify the thread count. So what is our thread count? Say for example, I'm running it for 10 browsers. So I wanted to run it 5 in parallel. At the same time, 5 I wanted to run in parallel is what it says. Not more than that, right? If you specify 10 also, it will run all the 10 browsers at the same time. But that actually degrades your performance. So multiple resources, so the resources will be occupied with your testing and, all the other tasks will be passed or it will be very slow. Your machine will become very slow depending upon the resources you have, CPU you have, right? So the thread count has to be chosen wisely. It has to be, usually the good practice is like it has to be between 2 and 5. Again, it depends on the CPU you have, right? CPU resources you have. So for now, I'll just put it as 5, or you can even restrict it to 3 because you have only three browsers, 3 tests, right? So the only thing you have to do here is at the suite level is a parallel equal to test, right? And you can even say uh, at the test level also, right? You can even say parallel equal to classes as well, like this. But what happens here with this is, so you can have a number of classes here like this within your test. But what happens with that is, so all these classes gets running in parallel within the test also. But there could be some dependency from one class to other class, right? So in that case, it will fail. So it's not a good practice to run the classes in parallel unless and until you are pretty much sure that you don't have any dependency between one class and another class. So, but at the test level, you can run it because each test is independent to itself, right? So you can run tests in parallel. So I'm saying parallel equal to test. That's all. This is the only parameter we specify, and the thread count. How many you wanted to run in parallel? If I specify 2 here, right? Only 2 will be picked up randomly, and 2 will be run in parallel. So that's the meaning of thread count. Now let's observe. Just included that, right? Now, if I run it, so if you observe, all the three browsers, observe, all the three browsers gets opened in parallel. See, look at my taskbar, observe. Chrome, Edge, and Firefox, all the three got opened in parallel at the same time. In parallel in the sense concurrently, at the same time, gets opened. And the test gets executed, right? The same test will be executed on all the three browsers. So this is how you can actually run the tests in parallel. See, Chrome has already done. Even Edge is also done. Now Chrome, Firefox is slow, so it is still running. Anyway, it will run, and we have seen this, right? Already we have seen this couple of times. Yeah, it ran. Now, yeah, it will exit, and you can see the total test run 9, right? So what's the advantage of running parallel? If you observe earlier, to run 3 tests it was in serial order, right? So for example, it was taking 2 minutes. Each test was taking 2 minutes, right? In that case, it will take 6 minutes together. But now, as we are running in parallel, it will take only 2 minutes, for all the 3 tests to be completed. So that's the beauty of running in parallel. But you have to be careful while running the test in parallel. So choose this thread count carefully, because it will occupy your resources. So you should not increase this. It should not be more number. So it will depend on the CPU you have, the machine on which you are running, right? So the CPU, the machine has the CPU. So depending on the CPU resources, you have to choose this thread count. So the ideal one is between 2 to 5, you can choose, right? So this is all about parallel testing. So we have seen like how to pass parameters using DataProvider, and how to pass parameters using TestNG XML file as well, right? And we have also seen how to run the parallel testing using XML file, right? Any questions? Okay, I'll take it as no, and I'm stopping here. So we have discussed many topics today. So you can just go through the recording, and yeah, if you have any questions, we can discuss in the next session. All right, I'm stopping here.